All right, great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 18th, 2021 City Council workshop and meeting. This session will be conducted remotely and council members will only participate electronically. For those viewing online, please ensure that you join this meeting using the following website address, www.lewistonmaine.gov/2021cc. And public comments on any item apparent on the agenda and our workshop can be sent to public comment at lewistonmaine.gov prior to or during the meeting. And all comments received will be forwarded to the City Council. And with that, we'll open up the workshop. The first item is Pavement Management Presentation, which we expect to be under 30 minutes. And Director Brenchick will be presenting.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
When I have a screen to share, I'm always like splitting my stuff, trying to figure it out. Good morning and good afternoon, rather, and thank you for inviting me to do this workshop. We do have our team in the background with us, Jeff Boley, our city engineer, Kevin Gagney, our Deputy Director of Operations, and Jim Ward down bottom is going to be presenting the second half with me because he created all of these wonderful maps and the storyboard for us. So, very excited to show you and explain a little bit more about what we're thinking and then really have this ongoing interactive map for the public. And so hopefully you have seen a little glimpse of it already. But if we'll share my screen, we'll start to do the PowerPoint and save some questions for the end, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Again, this is our capital projects and paving in a 5-year look. Okay, so we get a 5-year plan with a lot of details for this year, a little bit more details for next year, and then a general view at the next 3 years. Our team has been working on our mission and values statement. And so you'll see it in different places. If you come to our training room, you'll see the values listed. But our mission statement is really kind of looking at overall management and, being the caretakers of all the assets in our community. We are the caretakers, and this mission statement for us kind of puts it in a nutshell in the very end where it says adequately preserves these assets for succeeding generations. So for our children's children. And again, with the city, I was going to put this as just public works, but I really want to feel like we're one team. And so I always say that it's the city, and this is our goals, that we all communicate projects better to neighborhoods and to businesses, to fellow city staff, as well as facilitate what I'm going to describe the integrated design process, minimizing disruption to community life during construction and providing reasonable access for all users. And again, this is focused on construction time. So when you see us out there setting up construction sites, we're getting better. It's not perfect, but we're getting better. This is certainly our goals. And just to say a little bit about what complete streets are, when we look at how we're designing something, utilities are foundational. Does a sewer line need to be replaced? Does a water line need to be replaced? And there's ways that we can sometimes, like we're repairing a lot of sewer lines right now, where you don't have to excavate. So sometimes they're related, sometimes they're not. But they're an integral piece of us, predicting when that we're going to need to do work on our streets. So capital projects, a lot of them have to do with utilities, but again, some don't. And so when you look at this whole integrated design approach for complete streets, I wanted to give you this other visual where the incomplete street, and you guys know there's a committee. Before I got here, there was a committee that was started for complete streets. I don't always sit in on those meetings, but I do get feedback. George Peterson, who is also here with us, who he handles all the transportation projects, has been working with them on they meet monthly, I believe. But the manual's right here for people to click on. But I think the visual kind of says it all. Is an incomplete street is where it's mostly for vehicles, 78%, okay? And then a more complete street is 50-50, where you still have rooms for vehicles and you're still moving traffic, but there's room for people in non-motorized traffic as well. So that's our goal, is to have more complete streets. And that includes, landscaping as well as, the bike lanes and pedestrian and transit stops, all of those things. So when we get back to what assets are we really protecting, I wanted to give you a visual of just the asset piece that we have. And this is kind of coming from an insurance level. That's where we got these values. That's where we're putting them into our asset management beehive system, and we're getting better. So the streets, the utilities, the facilities, parks, and fleet. Those are the big capital projects, like big capital assets we have in our city. And looking at the insurance records, it's 315 million in assets. So the value, and to kind of see what are those pieces break out as, the streets is a pretty big asset of ours. Okay. So 128 million out of that total. And then, the second one coming up strong is facilities. And of course, we know we've got lots of work we're doing on our facilities. So the value of those are only going up. And then the next is water. And, we'll be talking a lot about water later in the workshop, beyond the workshop today. But the sewer and storm drain are pretty much the same. So kind of giving you a visual of where our assets kind of lay out and how much percentage is in each. I love doing pie charts, lots of pie charts, not a lot of facts and figures, you guys. And within our right of way, there's a ton of assets within here. Okay, so even within streets, there's traffic signals, there's sidewalks, there's street lights. The pavement itself, which we'll talk more about in detail. And the sewer and the water is pretty similar, as there's pipes and there's distribution and there's structures, but we know there's also treatment. Okay, so the partners that we have for treating our water and managing our water, not treating it, and then treating our sewer are other partners that we have. We're still very active in protecting those assets, but we don't have direct responsibility. We're really working with the pipelines and the structures. And then for stormwater, that also includes our open ditches. And I wanted to take a chance just to kind of look at the color coding here is really about our beehive modules. And I know you've heard some about it, but it's really our data management pieces and looking at how it's been growing. So I know you've been a great support of this program. It's the data collecting. And then, where we are right now is that we're putting in all the information that we have for assets, but there's still a missing link of the cost benefit ratio because we can't get to the financials. Okay, so Munis holds all of our financials, even for the projects that we do on a regular basis. Our capital projects are all billed out through Munis and they're tracked. What we still need is that data management module, which you'll hear more about. We didn't get it funded this year, but we're going to try again next year, is it connects the Munis financial pieces with the assets that we have. So then we can look at more cost benefit pieces, which is your true asset management system. So again, we've made great strides with getting the data in. You can see most of our modules are all purchased. The pavement and sidewalks is the last ones. But all of our, this program was started because of our licensing requirements for the utilities. So that's why we're farther along in the utilities than we are in some of the other assets. We're also doing facilities, although it wasn't in the right of way, so it isn't on the map. So facilities are coming along as well. So thank you for your support on the beehive modules. And this is how all our assets kind of work together in a web, is that, they relate to each other. I know I've always got a lot of questions about how we pave, why would we pave a road and dig it up after to do the sewer? We don't do that. We are planning our utilities. If something like that's happening in the community, it's an emergency. Something happened we didn't expect. So the way that we plan for it is that we are doing the utilities before we do the roadways. And sometimes that pavement comes a year later, especially sometimes with signal projects. If we're doing some signal upgrades, you might see the pavement and the sidewalks the next year. So that thought process is all going together. So this is kind of like the hard facts asset web. And then this gets into more of the thought process of how we design. So when I said the integrated design process earlier, these are the pieces I mean. So the big orange blocks are the facts. Where are the water lines? What condition are they in? What is the safety pieces that we have for accident data? What is the sewer line repairs? All of those pieces. And then in the white boxes are the pieces of, unexpected and judgment. I feel like it's the glue that holds our decisions together. Our professional judgment, we got an amazing team of engineers. And then looking at equity of services and, the transit operations, unexpected funding, like a new COVID funding, contractor schedules, all of those pieces kind of come in around those facts to then lay out what do we have for a capital plan. So all of this is going on, you guys. So just want you to really understand the integrated process that we have, even talking to our own staff. Like, for example, we now install signal ped buttons so that they're off to the side so that the sidewalk plows have more clearance. These are coming from our engineers talking to our people in the field who are doing the operations. So I think that internal conversation is just as important as, dealing with some of our consultants and even getting ideas from residents as well. So this is a curve you've probably seen before. Dale had this curve when you did this paving program. And what it means is that you need to try to repair a road before it slides downhill. And that's looking at light treatments, medium treatments, and heavy treatments. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because the storyboard does that. So the difference with a storyboard is that people who haven't heard anything about paving get a broad overview as well as the maps. So I know that you have seen this before, you know more about it. So I kind of just wanted to give you a visual and then show you where we're spending our money. Okay, so light treatments, you're keeping good roads good, light cracking, still in pretty decent shape. You want to overlay them and keep them in good shape. The medium treatments have some failures, starting to see some patching, may or may not need a utility, okay? And then when you get into the heavy treatment with the full rebuilds, you usually have utilities, you usually have sidewalks. And then to look at kind of what's the right timing is at that light treatment level, okay? So when you look at what we had for a budget in our fiscal year 21 was 3.8 million, okay? And when you look at the color coding, you can see that we're trying to have a more balanced approach of where are we spending the best bang for our buck, okay? So when you look at the orange, the light paving, that's the best place to put our money to maintain roads longer for a longer life, is that's where the majority of the paving went. And the other categories are pretty equal. And the 175,000 is crack sealant, which is really just a light maintenance. And another one you'll see on every fifth year, every third to fifth year, is that we need to redo our pavement condition index, because that's a spot in time where it has to be redone every 3 to 5 years. So we have it in our capital plan to redo that process every 5 years. So that is also around 75,000. So those little slices are kind of more maintenance, where the other ones are considered more capital projects. So the majority, again, 99% of our capital money is capital. There's some that's doing a little bit of preventative as well as management. And then this is the fun part, which I'm really going to give Jim all the credit for, because he has been working months on these maps, okay? And I know we would have loved to have had them out a little bit earlier, but we already have construction projects going. So when you look at this map, it's separated out by wards. And then because we wanted people to know who to get a hold of. And then the 3 basic questions we answer on every project. So when you zoom down in, and Jim will show you how to do this, whether you go onto a purple line or a blue line, it'll tell you what work is being done, when is it happening, and who do I contact for questions. So that's like the beginning stages of having these maps be a resource for any resident. You know, in the future, we'd love to have the plans tied to those, all of the, pictures, more pictures. But to get the base map down that we'll continue to upgrade and update, is one is on capital projects, and then the other one is on paving. So you have a little symbols off to the side. For this one, we just did what's completed for 21, your fiscal year 21, what's planned for fiscal year 22, and then your next 3 years. Okay, so I explained this a little bit more in the video about when we pave and where we choose these. So we'll listen to that at the end, but you can see these little boxes that pop up, right? And so you see that it's got messages 1 of 2 on the top left-hand corner. The second one is the connection to each counselor. So it goes right to your site on how to contact you. So we did that for every project, not only contact for us, but also contact for you all. Unless you want us to take that off, but I think it's a good option. And then really looking at, we don't have complete streets all over the city yet. We don't. We want to. We're trying to be better. So we're a work in progress. We're definitely a work in progress. And so when we move forward, we really want to be able to have more communication back and forth with different ideas from different partners and different community residents, as well as our own internal communication, to collaborate more with our transit providers and provide more equitable services where they're needed. There may be some differences in different neighborhoods, as well as our complete streets. And looking at that group as a design consultant really is looking at some target areas. And I know we're looking over by the hospitals, where there's more traffic, there's more pedestrians. We're certainly looking in choice neighborhoods. We're looking at Lisbon Street. So kind of looking at complete streets as being a helper to looking at areas where we can find those missing gaps. And, that's what we want to do. Where do we have bike lanes, and where's our biggest destination origins? Okay, where do people want to go? And make sure that we fill in the gaps. And then lastly, of course, is always maximize and to act on new opportunities that we have around us. We most recently had the earmark funds as well. I mean, we got the Bates Mill in there, but we had 2 or 3 other projects that we pulled together for being that unexpected funding. So just still to be able to, have these projects in the queue so that we can pick them up when something unexpected happens. So that's kind of an overview of our capital projects, how we think about them, how we choose them, how we spend the money, and, you know, kind of getting into the storyboard piece of it, where our process with this was more of, again, the residents don't necessarily have had this conversation before about paving, giving them an overview of what we're looking at, but also giving them those high level tools at their fingertips to look up a project and see exactly who's doing it and what's being done. And so hopefully that helps with some questions that usually come your way, and that they can answer some of that themselves. So that'll be on our website as a storyboard, similar to our sweeping, but it's much more involved. So I'm going to start it, and hopefully Jim can hop on and show you how to do some of the manipulation on it. But I'm hoping it pops up. We couldn't get the volume to work, so we're going to try this. Okay, so it's beautiful. He spent a lot of work on the pictures. He created this banner, and Dottie was a great resource. But with her going on vacation, we didn't want to stress her out too much. So Jim picked this ball up and did it himself. So
Marianne, I don't know, Marianne, I don't know if you're seeing it on your side, but you may need to adjust your share screen for us to see the storyboard. I saw you click on it, but we're not seeing the storyboard at this point.
okay, let me see what I need to do. New share. Did that help?
Yeah.
Oh, good. And again, we're not sure the volume will even work, but what happens with these storyboards is the pictures kind of move around with you. And where Jim kind of took this to another level is that this one has a banner where you can always jump right to the maps. Not if you don't care about the story, but maybe you're just going back to look at a map. So we made that very, very easy. And again, it goes through some of our values and pieces that we had today. And we're going to try the video. If you guys can't, can I get a thumbs up if you hear it? If not, let me know and I will turn it off. Hi, I'm Marianne Bruncheck, the Public Works Director here in the city of Lewiston. Can you hear? Okay. And we wanted to roll out in a storyboard way to show the capital projects and the paving programs that we have running in the city. Our focus was on this year, next year's, and the next 5 years. So it's a 5-year plan and trying to show you how projects are interrelated. And we'll start off with some utility projects, and utility projects are your water, sewer, and stormwater projects. So anything related to those fees that you have are going directly into capital projects that we do to improve the system. So those 3 projects kind of draw whether we're going to do a road paving this year or next year. So we look at our utilities first, okay? And we have lots of different ways to manage those assets through a beehive system that we look at the conditions of the pipe, as well as predicting when any failures might happen to be preventative to that. So our utilities programs is the foundation of our capital projects. And then of course we have parks projects that are unrelated to utilities. Building projects. So there's lots of other categories. So we wanted to just put down in there the major projects that we're doing. And you'll see on the interactive map where you can look at your own neighborhood and see where this year's projects are, next year's, and then the 3 years later. So again, trying to look at that 5-year plan. And then when paving is related, is that sometimes it's related to utilities, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes sidewalks are included, sometimes they're not. Traffic signals is another asset that we manage, and those are in our capital projects that sometimes interrelate with sidewalks and handicap ramps, and also sometimes relate to paving, even if it's a year later. So we wanted to try to give you a broad overview and that you could always see what's going on in your own neighborhoods and those around you, for those of you who are interested in construction in the city, so that you could actually have this interactive map. So we wanted to just give you a general overview of some of the reasoning that we use and look at a little bit more of understanding of that. This year's projects we're absolutely sure of. We're going out to bid, we know what they are. Next year's projects, we're 85, 90% sure, because things still may happen, things may get delayed, things may pop up that we'd be able to include other projects quicker and faster. So we wanted to explain a little bit about how that process happens and how things shift a little bit for next year's projects and for the 3 years after that. So again, we're absolutely sure about this year. Next year, we're probably 85, 90% sure. And then in our 5-year plan for years 3, 4, and 5, we're probably 75% sure, okay? Because things happen, whether that's additional funding that we might get or economic development project shows up and we do some work around that area to help develop business. And then there might be some grant money that we end up getting and needing to spend money by a certain time. So all of those things get integrated into our decision making. And, you know, one thing is I can say is that we have an amazing engineering division that is managing all these things. And they're not working on projects that we have right now. We have inspectors and engineering firms that helped us with the current projects. They're working on projects 2 and 3 years down the road. So we have a great crew that works together as a team, working with the operational people to make these designs more, maintenance friendly. So really kind of just wanted to give you that general overview. So this is our 5-year plan for capital projects in our paving program. And of course, if you have any questions, please call us anytime. But hopefully this is great information for you to have at your fingertips, and this interactive map will be updated on a regular basis by our engineers. Have a great day. I think at this point, I stop sharing and Jim pulls up the map. Can you do that, Dale? Jim, you might want to take off your mute as well.
Better?
Yes.
Thank you, Marianne. All right. Good evening, everyone. Let me see if I can get my screen to share. Let's see if that works. Okay, is everybody seeing that? It's going to look very similar to what we just saw with Marianne's. So this is the same capital projects and paving storyboard, which the intent of this is to deliver this information to the public, and it's in a web format, and it's mobile friendly, so you could open this up on your phone or tablet and it's going to work. Everything's going to just resize automatically. It's pretty cool. This is a platform that we're kind of using for multiple uses. So this was just an application for it, but Dottie and Janet have been using this storyboard system for the administrator's report and the sweeping program storyboard that Dottie did. That was awesome. That was all done through this thing, through story maps or storyboards, which is pretty much the same thing. But the great thing about this is we can do these things in-house. We don't need a web developer. We can put these together, and it's a really cool tool. So it allows you to visualize data. You could have dashboards and photos and all kinds of really cool stuff. So moving right along. I won't go through any of this. I won't read this, but I will point out that there are a couple links that you may want to check out. Again, this is intended for the public, so this will be posted on the Public Works page at some point, and the public will be able to go to this storyboard and read all this stuff. Click on it, they'll be able to read this complete streets ordinance, see Marianne's video. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these slowly, and as you go, the pictures kind of follow along. This is just a quick little shout out to our Beehive asset management program. That's a kind of a quick view of a storm drain inspection, I believe, and we track all of that stuff through Beehive. So that gives us our indicators of risk and failure and all that other stuff. Okay, so moving right through these slides. Basically, this will just keep moving. There is a map here, and all you need to do is click there. It's pretty simple. You guys have probably already tried it. Of course, I have to click a little harder for it to work. All right, so you guys are used to maps now. This isn't a new thing, really. Works like Google Maps, zooming in and out with a scroll wheel. It's pretty simple. What we've done is on this particular map, I did put a little button here that's for, that closes the legend. I didn't do the wards. So I have another one that actually clicks, when you click on that, it will zoom you to that ward. It doesn't really matter for what we're doing here. What you are able to do is click in that, I might have to get a little closer. There we go. It was a little slow. When you click into that region, it brings up a hyperlink. In this case, this will bring up Zachary Pettengill's page. And if we wanted to get his contact information, call him, you know, for whatever reason. So I'm going to close that. You can close those without worry about closing anything else because it's literally a new tab. So let's go back to this. All right, we're going to stay on that. The other thing you can do is you can do a search. So I'm just picking, well, one at random, but it'd be helpful to know which one. Let's see. Let's just pick. Let's say we're looking for that one would be Laurier. All right. So let's make believe I didn't do that. So let's just put in Laurier. LAU. Laurier. Okay, so we're able to pick these addresses. Let's say that happens to be one of your constituents that lives there, and they happen to be going through this, and they're like, I wonder what's going on now on my street. So it'll zoom them right to that location, and then they'll see these color symbols, which do correspond to the legend right here. And all they need to do is click on that symbol, and of course, it's going to, depending on where it clicks, sometimes you get the link to the counselor. But you also see it says 1 of 2 right there. That means it's finding 2 layers, if you will, on the map. Because every map is made of layers. Everything's like in different stages. So depending on what's on top at that moment. So we click on the next thing and it's telling us that this is a utility update. So it may be storm drain, maybe new sewer, but it is in the works for this year. And you know that by the color, which is 20. That lighter orange doesn't show as well in the zoom, but you can tell the difference. So this is for this fiscal year, 2021. And this is the contact information if you needed to get in touch with the engineer that's managing it. And that, in this case, is John Kaczynski. All right, so you can zoom out. You can click anywhere. You want to see what's going on with these projects. You can see that the darker purple, that's slated for further down the road, 23, 24, 25. You can still click on it and see what it is. Again, it's showing that it's finding 2 things there. So you've the Haley Street water main replacement. And what we try to do is, if you've got a project that this is a live map. So literally anything that's completed or goes through different stages of status, that's going to be reflected on this. So this one right here just happens to be completed. This is, again, it gets the more information. This is Heathwood Lane, and that project was completed as part of, well, I think it was at the end of last season. So as we move forward, that just gives you an example of what those are going to look like. Once they're completed, you're going to start seeing them turn green. All right, I'm going to close out of this one. The other map is very similar, but I'll show you that. That's more the paving map. So again, this is kind of giving an overview of how we arrive at the PCI and what it means. There is a link here again. This is a direct link to that PowerPoint presentation, which Marianne just gave. We may even put another link here for this actual recorded session that's going on tonight. But that's the cool thing about this. We can change these, you know, if right in house, like if somebody emailed me right now and said, hey, you misspelled capital, which could never happen, because never more than one way of spelling capital, right? I can fix that, you know, in like 2 minutes, and it's reflected. So this kind of gives an overview and a couple of sample pictures of what the different pavement treatments are. You guys can check that out. I'm sure you've already looked at it. Again, some of these were pulled from the PowerPoint. We also put lists by fiscal year for paving. So as you can just simply click on one of these. And again, this is mobile friendly. So you can open this up on the smallest smartphone and it'll work. It'll open up. You can just do a search. It's all alphabetical. You can see what's going on. I'm going to close that. The other two, same thing, 22, 20, 23, 25. Opens the same way. And here's another map. This is basically your paving map. And we chose to present this one a little bit different because it's kind of a standalone thing. In other words, it can work by itself just like this. We can put in 27 Pine, and it'll get you there, and I'll show you what's going on at 27 Pine. Same type of symbology. One of the things I did have on this one is the bookmarks. So if you clicked on that, it would show you basically these little favorites, if you will, for the map. So you want to see just Ward 4, there's Ward 4, and it's, the way it encompasses a pretty good part of the city. It looks pretty big, but Ward 7, you can kind of slide that open if you need to. Again, go back, you can turn all this is just toggleable. You can literally switch back between the two of them. You can also make this full size by clicking on that little icon, and that's what this little note is indicating. So it works the same way, though. It's exactly the same. You literally can zoom in on a project, and because this is primarily paving focused, it's going to be paving jobs, and you'll see the contact information for the pavement manager in this case, Justin Bisson. And this project is funded for the year 2022. That's why we have that orange symbol right there. These are, again, further down the road, future paving, Weber Avenue, mill and fill. It gives you an idea of what the treatment's going to be as well. So going back, you can even go back to the story map and scroll back up and say, what does the mill and fill mean? You can kind of check that out, get a little overview. This is all about basically better information to the public and showing them how we're spending their money, and what work we're doing and how they can plan for their own uses. If they're planning to get gas, let's say they want gas hooked up or something, we're going to be paving next year, and we bet probably a good idea to do it now as opposed to next year. And kind of scooting through this because I know you guys have a lot of other stuff to talk about. So we're also experimenting with a few little cool tools you can do with these story maps, and this is or storyboards. This is before and after. You see Birch Street. This is what it looks like after. You get a nice sidewalks. This is what it looked like before. It's pretty bad. So and you can see utility trenches and stuff like that. So that's the finished product after it was completed. We're going to do more of that kind of thing. This is another example. Central Avenue. I show, you can see the striping, and I think they've actually striped the individual symbols for the bike lanes or anything yet at that point, when I think this was shortly after paving. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. It's basically a lot of the key points from the PowerPoint kind of just wrapped up into this storyboard kind of setting, so that it's easy easy on the eyes. It's user friendly, but we also really welcome the user feedback too. You may say, what, that embedded map is really kind of cumbersome. Maybe you should make it so that it's just a link, or whatever. Anything, any suggestions? We're definitely learning this. This is a new tool for us. We've only been using it for about maybe a year. So it's something we pay for as part of our enterprise agreement with the GIS software company. So all of our mappings, all of those databases and everything, this is actually part of that suite. So it was being underutilized because frankly, nobody really had time to learn it, but then we finally got to that point where we could learn it, and now we're really going to roll it out. So you'll see more of this kind of thing. So I'm going to leave it right there unless anybody has any questions.
So if we could drop the shared screen, that was a great presentation, a lot of good info there, and I really like that new interactiveness for our community, because road paving, every councilor gets calls about their street and when is it coming up next, and it's going to be so nice to be able to refer what we do now is we call Dale or Dennis and say, hey, can we get some information out? So this will be really good to refer folks right to that. I see lots of hands raised. So Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess 2 comments and a question. So looking at like the maps, we have the ward lines on there. Do the ward boundaries cover up any of the work that's being done? Because like I know I live on Sylvan Ave, and I know we desperately need it for some paving, and I didn't notice it on any of the maps. So do the ward boundaries interfere with?
That's a really good question. I tried to be cognizant of that when I did my symbology. So the ward lines should be a little narrower. So you should see something behind them. I can go and look at that. In fact, what's the name of the street?
Sylvan, SYLVAN.
Sylvan, yeah. Let's look at Sylvan. I've still got my application open over here, so I'm gonna just for giggles and see if there's anything going on. So yes, and it does. And actually, the symbol for this Marcotte Avenue is Tampa, and I'm seeing Sylvan Avenue is hidden. It's the ward line boundary is dividing down the middle of the street, but you still see that paving in 2022 is going to be occurring. So that it's still, you just have to zoom, you might have to zoom in a little closer, and that's all, but it is there.
Okay, awesome, cool. Yeah, that was just a big concern I had. So
Yeah, cool.
Glad to hear.
Good question.
Yeah, I guess other than that, this was an awesome presentation. I'm a huge fan of maps myself, so
Cool,
the
thank you.
visual is just extremely helpful. So that was really cool to see. I want to give it some thought about linking counselor information to the maps, because a lot of the time I feel like I get kind of frustrated with my constituents that I'm not able to help them as much, or I just kind of have to act as a middleman, where if they could just contact one person, they'd probably be less less frustrated too. So you might be onto something here, and this probably is for the best. I just probably want to give it some more thought as to whether counselor information should be on there. Because I mean, being part-time, I hardly have enough time to even answer constituent emails now, and kind of feel bad. So I don't really want to add anything to my workload. Sorry to say, but also just more in general, just broadly speaking, it definitely should be a goal of we elected officials in Lewiston to get away from from borrowing money in order to pay for roads, because then we have to pay the interest on it too. So our goal long term, of course, should be to move it towards like the actual budget. That's my position anyways. Not that we're in the position to even do that now. So long term, that's what we should be working towards. So as far as the public knows, I'd like to see that happen. So there is that thought coming to mind. Again, great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Khalid.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim and Marianne, this presentation was excellent. I especially love the interactive map. I think that's, a next level step for our public works and for our city to be more communicating and understanding the city operations. So hats off to you.
Thanks, Counselor.
And then just 1 or 2 questions and then a concern. One thing that I, as a counselor, get a lot of is speed bumps, especially on the streets. There, residents experience a lot of people speeding through their street, and I'm wondering on that website or even on the map, somehow, I don't know, adding information about like what is the process to get a speed bump, or how to contact the counselor, what kind of information is needed, etc. Because a lot of the questions that I get is, can you put a speed bump or a speed monitor on our street, in the process to do that? So that's one thing. And I think, the police would be involved in that too. And then other folks from Public Works as well as myself.
Yeah, we're doing Ware Street right now as an example of kind of that team coming together, not just the study, but that we look at the data after and what do we do with it? Is the middle of that street an area for, does it warrant a stop sign? Does it warrant a speed bump, a hump? The whole intersection is sometimes raised. So yeah, we definitely can add a little study. Like I wanted to do like points of interest, like just interesting stuff we're doing in different areas. So that could come under that as well.
Yeah, or even like, a tab that you can click on that has information about speed bumps. Strawberry Ave was another area that I got concerns about, and then Pettingale too. And then another one question that I have was regarding like the different paving options. Which is the most needed in the city? Like
They
there
all-
was the, no, go ahead, sorry.
When you look at all the PCIs and that they're changing every year, they're changing. There's still, the more that we keep up, the more you're gonna have in that light treatment, but there's still different categories. You're always gonna have a medium, and you're always gonna have a full reconstruction. You just wanna have less in those ones, because it
Mhm.
costs more money to repair a medium, and it costs the most money for a full reconstruction. So those categories should get smaller, but you're probably always gonna have some. It isn't always gonna all be light treatment. We don't have that kind of finances, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of getting the best bang for your buck, is that balanced approach kind of piece.
Yeah, thank you. And then maybe it's kind of similar, but like the heavy treatment, I know it's like not, are you saying like regarding like heavy treatment pavement is not more focused and like light pavement is focused more?
The heavy treatment is a full cutting out of the road, taking out the gravel, putting in new gravel and base so that it's flat, it has no pitch to it. That would be a full reconstruction. So a medium construction just kind of grinds off some of the old pavement, puts in some new. That's what a mill and fill is. And so that's, you know, the full reconstruction is you're taking out all the dirt and gravel and regrading the whole road. Usually you're doing utilities too.
Okay, and lastly, how often do we do heavy treatment?
A heavy treatment road is a road that hasn't seen any work on it for 20 plus years.
Oh, wow. Do we have a lot of those?
I don't have like the mileage down, but we could do that. We could get that.
Okay, I'm just interested in like stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I know.
Thank you.
We tried to
That's
get
it.
as many charts in there as we could, but that is definitely another good one.
And I can assure you during the recession, there were several years that we weren't able to stay up on the
Right.
heavy. And that happens periodically every decade, where there's a time and space where it's a struggle to meet our obligation. But I will say, we're doing much better now than we were back when I initially got on the city council. So that's hats off to, like Councilor Khalid said, half off to your department for advocating that. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to, oops, sorry, I put my hand back up, Director Brenchick and Jim. I've never been excited about the pavement presentation before, so that's good. I think there's a lot of good stuff on here. I would definitely agree that maybe switching the overlays for the map so that the first thing that comes up is the project description, and then the second page is the counselor contact info might just make a little bit more sense on user interface side of things.
We can do that.
And then the only other link that I was clicking around and trying to find was the entire city listing with the PCI ratings. I know that's been given to us by at least Dave Jones and Dale in the past. And maybe it's just like my security blanket for paving, just to know like when someone reaches out to me and complains and then they're like, well, there's no color on my street on the map to be able to say, well, you're rated at this and blah, 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 blah. So just again, you know, in my constituent services, being able to answer the questions as fully as I can without nagging you all as well. I think that would be helpful if that was either available on that page for folks or just available to counselors as we do our constituent concerns. But otherwise, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pettingill.
Thank you. Just kind of piggybacking off what Councilor Ray was just saying, with having the paving information be the first tab as opposed to the counselor information. Only just, you know, our quick look at it. Council information is plastered everywhere. There's just not a clickable link on it. And then hearing that it's just a setting, with it being the little triangle, I wonder if people have trouble knowing that that's how you access that second tab. I don't know, especially where it's built into the GIS software. I don't know if that's changeable or not. But I do think this is a perfect step, you know, in transparency and allowing citizens to be able to access this information more easily and on their own. And again, I appreciate, thank you for the work that you did with this presentation. I appreciate the approach of actively managing and maintaining our roads. And focusing on the light work instead of just waiting until we have road failure to work on that. It's a much more sustainable process in the long run. So I appreciate this approach. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councilor Clement, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent presentation. I particularly like the graphics that you put into it. I think it's going to be very helpful. I think the last time I saw a public works director get as excited about a presentation, your predecessor one time was going to address us on road postings for spring weight limits. And it was nowhere near the presentation you gave tonight. I don't want to degrade him at all, but the excellent presentation and most helpful. I'm glad to see that you folks are getting with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, good presentation. Thank you very much. Appreciate staff's time on this.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to workshop item B, a review of the Lewiston state of emergency. I'll turn this over to Dennis.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. As you know, recently was asked to have an opportunity to review our current state of emergency. And just to be clear, this is the Lewiston, City of Lewiston state of emergency. We have no, obviously, authority or say on the governor's state of emergency. So any action we take related to this or discussion is just on the City of Lewiston state of emergency. So I really just wanted to quickly cover some highlights around that. I think the opportunity was really for the mayor and city council to have a discussion about whether or not, or just about the state of emergency and the current status. I think the big question that was asked to start was what would be some impacts if we, what would be the potential impacts if we were to rescind or make changes to the state of emergency. Going back, I guess just history here, it was March 17th, 2020, when we did establish the state of emergency through resolve. This was all in your packet. I'm just going to run through some of the things that we provided with you. And this was really our process of kind of trying to understand what the impacts would be in major impacts. I think you have the full civil emergencies, chapter 30 in there that gives you every, all of the details there around, rules and authorities and such. The next document that we gave you was all of the action, and it's a full chart that you should see in front of you that has the reference description, the date of the action that the council took, and a brief overview, and then really kind of an exception or sunset clause on each of them. When we went through this chart that you have here, which is business licenses, business loan program, CARES funding, congressional funding, city administrator's authority to sign during the pandemic. These were all actions that you took in reaction to the pandemic. And if you look at the far right-hand corner, that's really where what we focused on was what's still actually active or in place. A lot of these had sunset clauses that they just expired at certain dates throughout the year. The actual only current action that's still, I guess, active, so to speak, is the rental registration extension that was actually tied. We tied that one to the governor's state of emergency. And that's just delayed until the month beginning 30 days after the expiration of the state of emergency declared by the governor. And that was really just adjustment of the penalties established in the ordinance and, not fining for the rental registration. So ultimately, I guess the answer is we're not aware of any significant impacts to the city, at this point, if the state of emergency were to be rescinded or changes made to that. The decision to make it, you certainly would want, direction from the city council. Sorry, let me back up. In terms of impacts, the only thing that I would highlight, and Director Hunter and I discussed this earlier today, just around ARP funding, in which we will be bringing to you in June. We will be having a discussion about what those options are and what we can be doing. But we would be establishing in there the March 17th date of 2020 as the date that we declared, the emergency. And that's obviously important for just being able to apply the funding to areas in response to the pandemic. We want to have that state of emergency established. So we have that established. That doesn't change just because we rescind it or we make changes, but that's probably the most significant, that we wanted to make sure that we didn't impact funding or any type of opportunity like that. And there's no known impacts that we can see at this point. We'd obviously bring something forward if there was, in the future. In terms of rescinding or making a change to it, I think the simplest thing here is it states right in our state of emergency that essentially the city administrator and the mayor would rescind the order. But it's all, as part of the process, we certainly would want that, direction. I want to hear that from the council and just kind of have some direction if that's, the direction we want to head in. And I think that's really all I have at this point. I really want to have an opportunity for the council and the mayor to have a conversation, and certainly we can answer any questions. Director Hunter or Deputy City Administrator Dowdy is also available. Any questions around this, we can walk you through it. So let's turn it over to you, Mayor, and the council, and we'll answer any questions and here for discussion.
All right, thank you. So, I think the state of emergency was an important step this community took at the beginning of the pandemic. And I appreciate the council's support that the administration and the mayor's office had at the very beginning and really throughout this pandemic. But at this point, other than the potential use of the term in a state of emergency would be in the funding areas, the only place I can think of at this point, and I'm not convinced that we need that there. It does not feel like a state of emergency right now, even though our numbers are higher than they've been throughout the pandemic, and hospitalizations are higher at our local hospitals than they've been through the entire pandemic. We still are in crisis in the community when it comes to the number of people that are being treated in our hospitals and intensive care units. And that's because of a lack of common safety practices within the community. But I think messaging is what's lacking there. I think I'm in discussions with both hospital presidents at this point about doing joint press releases to try to get this message out there. And I don't think having a state of emergency will make much of a difference there. So that's about all I have for an opinion on the matter. Councilor Ray, I think your hand was up first.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first, just to start, seeing this listed out, all the work that staff has done to help us make the right decisions for our community, I have to take a second to recognize that the leadership of this city has been incredible, I think, through this, and has been a steady hand guiding us through. So thank you for that. I did want to ask the city administrator about specifically adjusting personnel policies. And if we were to remove the state of emergency, does that hamstring you all in any way, with especially considering collective bargaining units and what hours might be set in there versus what our actual need is?
No, I appreciate it. Great question, actually, Councilor Ray. No, I don't think it would impact us there, because ultimately we worked with the unions, individual, collective bargaining units, on depending case by case, on the issues. So just as a good example, our fire department schedule is obviously very different than our city hall schedule. So different bargaining units, we had to really kind of just work on a case by case, issue. Actually, how we approach that, just an example, we actually asked each department director to deal with their operations, make adjustments as you see fit. And as those union issues or those challenges around that come forward, we will deal with the unions to get those worked out. And I have to say, our collective bargaining units were fantastic to work with through all of this. Everyone really, you did the shout out. I'll give a shout out to our staff, at the start of this. The flexibility we were asking for, or the understanding, was just incredible. And to not get flack or get any kind of feedback. It was just really understanding, yes, we'll work with it. I don't like it, but we'll work with it. I respect that. And it was really good. So lifting or rescinding the state of emergency wouldn't impact that. I think we'd take the same approach on, having to deal with personnel issues or policy decisions. And, just in that regard, if there is a personnel policy decision that we would have to bring to the city council because the council does act on our personnel policies, then we would just do that. I don't think it would impact anything, from an emergency response standpoint or having to make a decision. We'd be able to do those like we have before.
Okay, that's great info to have. I would just again say, like, we did great work throughout this, and I'm good putting the state of emergency away at this point, putting it back on the shelf.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, for one, would also like to see this rescinded for various reasons. I think one thing that might come about as a result, it shouldn't be the intention that we have to rescind it, but I think we're going to get some good publicity showing that we are relaxing things, giving people some hope. It's been a long haul. We've come through what everyone called was going to be a very dark winter. I don't think it was anywhere near as dark as some people prognosticated, but I do think we've turned the corner, and I think it's time that we start relaxing. I'm a little miffed to think that we're going to follow our neighbor across the river in doing so, but let's get it done. Otherwise, I would also like to ask city administration to get together with Corporation Council, and I would like to see a redrafting of the emergency powers ordinances. I would like to see something where the council is consulted and has to renew or approve extensions. I just don't like the idea of one or two people having complete control. I think your elected officials should have a say in this. If it's by majority vote or supermajority vote for an extension, I have no problem with that. But I do think the elected folks ought to have a say in how this is run. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
All right. So a couple of things, before I would suggest before city administrator takes that step, we'd really want to hear what other councilors think about that. I think there's reasons. Okay, so we have two councilors supportive of changing the authority of who can call a state of emergency. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would agree with Councilor Clement and Councilor Pettingill that it does make sense to have the elected council be able to make that decision, and kind of seems weird that it's not. So sooner we can get that language presented to us to make that change, I'd be appreciative.
All right, one argument I would share is that the city administrator runs the city. Council sets priority, and at some emergencies, they happen quickly, and the city administrator should have the ability to call a state of emergency without council approval.
I don't disagree with that. I completely agree with that. So, yep.
Okay. All right. So other councilors, anybody else want to weigh in? There's three. Councilor Pettingill, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. Anyway, I think it's a good idea to have the checks and balance. I fully understand the need to be able to make these decisions as they happen in a rapid response to it. I do think, over time that having that sort of check and balance will benefit everybody. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify. So sorry, I'm getting a little lost. The emergency order references the city charter and section code of ordinances. Is what's under that, the civil emergencies, is that an ordinance or is that in charter? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's an ordinance, I believe.
That's an ordinance. Okay. I don't remember it being in charter, but my brain's fuzzy. So, okay. So ordinance is something that the council has the will or the ability to change. But I think the secession order is from charter.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to parse out what
Nope.
Okay, and so I know the Charter Review Committee is going currently, so it might be worth passing this conversation along to them as well, since not all of it falls under our authority, but the ordinances do. Okay, thank you very much.
I will do that. That's a good suggestion. I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clement? You're on mute.
Okay, finally got the button working. Just for purposes of clarity, I have no problem with the administrator being able to declare an emergency. What I just heard a moment ago was that the only way this could be rescinded was by the administrator and the mayor. I don't think that's right. I think the council should be able to override. That's what my point was, just for purposes of clarification on it. I have no problem with an individual having to act. And of course, if they act and the council thinks it's wrong, then the council is going to react. But I just think that the idea that this can carry on ad infinitum, but without the council being able to rescind it, that doesn't seem right to me. That's my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from councilors? Okay, so overall, I think there's support of having some type of rewrite of that ordinance, and I'll have to look at the charter again, because that's obviously something we can't, change. But like Councilor Ray said, it's perfect timing for the Charter Review Committee to look at that as well. All right, any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, we have one attendee that's requesting to all right, well, I'm not seeing that anymore. All right, so we're going to move on to our council meeting. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Lewiston City Council meeting. This session will be conducted remotely, and council members will only participate electronically. For those of you online, please ensure that you join this meeting using the following website, www.lewistonmaine.gov/2021cc. If by chance you've joined using any other link, we ask you to log off and then re-log in on that website. Public comment on any item appearing on the agenda may be sent to publiccomment@lewistonmaine.gov prior to adjourn this meeting, and all comments received will be forwarded to the City Council. Members of the public who are logged into the meeting online can make comments when invited to do so in reference to agenda items and during public comment period. And councilors are asked to raise their hands to make a comment. And unless excused by the mayor, staff, and city councilors will keep their videos on. With that said, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll for attendance.
Or Councilor from Ward 1,
Present.
Ward 2,
Here.
Ward 3,
Present.
Ward 4,
Present.
Ward 5,
Present.
Ward 6,
Present.
and Ward 7. Also in attendance this evening, Mr. Mayor, is Dennis Dote, the City Administrator, Dale Dowdy, Deputy City Administrator, Heather Hunter as the Finance Director, and myself as the City Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First item is any updates regarding the COVID-19 pandemic.
A couple, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, last Thursday, the governor made some changes to the reopening Maine plan, and then made some additional changes on Friday. City staff, administration is really looking at our operations and how we accommodate those. There's a number of things with occupancy being in buildings and outside of public buildings being lessened. Also, the mask requirement for people who are fully vaccinated, both customers and employees. So tomorrow morning, we'll be meeting with our senior staff on setting up, matching the governor's guidelines on how we respond to those. We will take into consideration some of the things you mentioned just a moment ago. We're still inside the county, still getting 20 to 30 cases. Also, the hospitals and the CDC reports Our hospitalizations are higher than they have been at least last month, and this month is on track again. And those hospitalizations really span from people in their 20s all the way to more senior people, where early in the pandemic, it was mostly senior people. And then the final thing we'll take into consideration is the state's at 54% of its population being fully vaccinated or population that's eligible. Lewiston right now is at 46%. So we're a bit behind the rest of the state. And I think those three facts probably are interrelated. So we'll take those into considerations as we figure out how operations moves forward. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Khalid.
One question I have, Dale, is what is the number of city employees vaccination rate?
We don't actually know that because so far we haven't, but it hasn't been something we could ask. And it is something that it appears that there's some guidance from the governor. We need to get some legal authority. My assumption is we're probably a little higher than the general population, but probably more somewhere in the state range. And I take that from our emergency services. We do know where they were vaccinated because they were vaccinated through the city, and they were in the mid-50s. So I'm guessing somewhere in the 50% range to 55, 60%.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask if, and you may have already done this, but is it possible to provide a time off incentive to folks to go get their vaccination? I know my employer allowed us 2 hours for transport and that sort of thing. Is that something we might be able to offer to our employees to make it a little easier for them?
I think many employees have done that, just working with their bosses, also during their breaks. And then, of course, last week we had the vaccination clinic right near City Hall over on the Oak Street parking lot. Unfortunately, that was a little disappointing. I think, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but started out in the 40s the first 2 days, but really dropped off into the 20s the next 2 days. So there have been a number of opportunities, and now most drugstores offer vaccinations. So I think there are lots of opportunities for people to get them during the normal business day and off hours. The clinic on Ash at the parking lot also varied their hours, both for us, but also for some of the larger industrial people that are working on shifts. So I think there's been a lot of different opportunities for employees to get vaccinated if they so chose.
Okay, so it's more that folks are electing not to, more so than us giving us opportunities. Okay, that's helpful to understand.
I believe that's so, yeah.
All right, so I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind the community that we've had many community members in Lewiston die from COVID-19. We've had many more who have been admitted into intensive care and have lifelong effects related to COVID-19. So as mayor, I understand there are some reasons, legitimate reasons that people may have an issue with that. But if you haven't taken the opportunity to talk to your primary care doctor or a trusted family friend or family members to get sound advice through either the CDC, just many opportunities, I just think it would be a great goal if 100% of our community could get vaccinated. That will enable us to safely open up business and know that it'll be sustainable, that there won't be a threat of further closures. So get out there, get vaccinated, ask the right people, turn to the people you trust for advice if they've had the vaccine. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Dale. That was a good update. So the presentation of the scholarship has been postponed. I think it's going to be the next meeting at this point. There was a scheduling conflict as far as I'm aware. And then I'm just going to announce all roll call votes this evening. We'll start with Ward 4. I always found it odd that we take a vote on the minutes, but we haven't announced who the roll call votes will start yet. So I'll do that tonight, but maybe Kathy in the future, we can put that just a tiny bit higher. All right, thank you. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of May 1st and May 11th, 2021. And I'm not sure what the red is for me in the June 1st. Go ahead.
Right, Mr. Mayor, if we could just bump that to June 1st, that would be great.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
so there are no minutes this evening to approve.
Right, because the May 4th was for all the budget adoption. We just wanted to sort of take another extra minute just to proofread all of those numbers.
Okay, thank you. So disregard that. And with that said, we'll turn this over to the public comment period. Any member of the public may make comments regarding to issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. And these are only items that are not on the agenda. And with that said, I'll open up the public comment period for any member of the public who'd wish to share their thoughts with the City Council. Okay, seeing none. Oops. Okay, I have one person's hand, Miss Ward. Hi, Miss Ward, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, go ahead.
I guess my comment, because I don't have agenda in front of me, I just have the letter from the water district, is concerning the 23% increase in the water district. And that seems to be exceedingly high and asking a great deal out of people who are currently struggling. It's worse than what the school district did that you dealt with. And I'm concerned as to what everybody's opinion is of this. And you're asking for another 50, 100 or more dollars from citizens all at one time. And I mean, the letter I got from them tells me to attend this meeting at 7 o'clock. So are you going to take it up at this meeting?
We will. I think that's the agenda item number 8.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just for the record, a lot of people, I mean, we all know Miss Ward, but she is a Lewiston resident. I should have asked her to clarify that at the start, but I'll just acknowledge that now. All right, seeing no other public comments, we'll move to agenda item number 1, please.
Sure, item number 1, order authorizing the tennis courts at Franklin Pasture Complex to be named Coach Anita Murphy Courts in honor of Anita Murphy. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the tennis courts at Franklin Pasture Complex to be named Coach Anita Murphy Courts in honor of Anita Murphy.
Thank you.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Kate, moved by Councilor Jelinas, seconded by Councilor Clement. And I gotta tell you, I was really excited to see this on the agenda. So Heather, we saw the memo received, sent to you by Mr. Fuller. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, Coach is definitely well decorated and represents the community, shows great enthusiasm for the sport. I know Jason Fuller, the athletic director for the Lewiston school system, is also here. So if there are any additional questions, he can jump in. But otherwise, I think all the information was furnished in your packet.
All right, good, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Jelinas?
I don't have any questions, but I just can't think of a better thing to do than to honor Coach Murphy. She has just shown so much support for our youth over the years to hundreds and hundreds of athletes. And I just think this is a wonderful thing for us to be doing. And I'm delighted to see this come forward. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none to the public. Okay, if we could bring in Mr. Fuller. Good evening.
Thanks for having me.
All right, if you could just share if you're a Lewiston resident and then take it away.
Hi, Jason Fuller, Lewiston resident, Lewiston athletic director. I'd just like to thank the committee for considering this. Coach Murphy's legacy is second to none. She's an outstanding advocate for our kids, both at the youth and at the high school level. And I think this is a tremendous honor for her and for the amount of time. I don't think there's a single person in our community that has spent more time on those courts than herself. And I just really looking forward to hopefully this passes and we can recognize Anita probably first week in June and hang a sign up and name the courts after her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other folks from the public who would like to comment? Okay, seeing none, back to the council. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not particularly familiar with Coach Murphy. A lot of this time I was out of state, but I'm just looking over the stats that were posted with this request. Awesome. We're going back to 1983. That's fantastic. And I think it's an honor well deserved. Thank you.
And the last time I saw her, her energy level was like it was 1983. So she still puts 100% into it. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 2, please.
Item number 2, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Lewiston Recreation Division, 65 Central Avenue. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to the Lewiston Recreation Division, 65 Central Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Second.
second.
Okay, moved by Councilor LaJoy, seconded by Councilor Jelinas, and I'll open the public hearing. And I think the packet provided this pretty standard stuff. Is there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none to the public. Back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
and Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 3, please.
Item number 3, public hearing for approval of an outdoor entertainment permit for the Recover Out Loud event. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on an application for an outdoor entertainment event for Recover Out Loud and to grant a permit for an outdoor entertainment event as required by the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-3 to the Rest Center for an outdoor music concert for their event to be held at the Kennedy Park Gazebo on July 11th, 2021, contingent upon positive recommendations from the Police Department, Fire Department, Code Health Officer, and Land Use Inspector regarding compliance with all regulations and compliance with all city ordinances.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Jelinas, seconded by Councilor LaJoy. And with that, I'll open the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Ray?
Just had a question, and there's a couple of permits today that have this, the contingent upon positive recommendations from all those folks. Is that something that we normally do? I feel like sometimes we have recommendations already.
Right, really, Counselor, for these outdoor entertainment permits, a lot of times it's a timing issue, especially in the summertime when the council usually only meets once in the summertime. We like to secure the council approval and conduct the public hearing, but staff will not issue any of these permits until the applicable departments sign off. A lot of times too, the events are quite large and there might be some moving pieces at the very last minute. The departments really need to review those plans. Or if they're brand new events to the city, we want to take extra time to review all the logistics with them. So it really just comes down to a timing issue, Counselor. But for the outdoor entertainment permits, that last language in the motion is always a traditional tagline that we put on for conditional approval.
Okay, thank you. Of course, you're all doing above and beyond with your work. That I expected that as an answer, so.
And I do know most of those are underway now with those departments as we speak. So they've been underway for a week or so.
So yeah, I was going to follow up with a question. How long typically does it take if it's not a new proposal? How long does it typically take?
It really depends. I think a lot of it depends on the applicant. Some applicants come in with a kind of a solid plan. Others kind of work with Janet through, and Janet needs to kind of tease a plan out and help them plan their event. And then sometimes they come in with a solid plan that needs to be altered. They may come in and need more electricity than we can provide in Kennedy Park, or they may need they haven't thought about sanitation facilities or code if there's food involved. They may not have thought about some sanitation around those. So sometimes they're very, very quick, a few days. Sometimes they may be weeks, depending on really the applicant and where they are in their planning process.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none to the public. Back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 4, please.
Item number 4, public hearing for approval of an outdoor entertainment permit for the Lewiston Farmers Market concerts. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on an application for an outdoor entertainment event for the Lewiston Farmers Market concerts and to grant a permit for an outdoor entertainment event as required by the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-3 to the Lewiston Farmers Market Association for outdoor music concerts for the market, contingent upon positive recommendations from the police department, fire department, code health officer, and land use inspector regarding compliance with all regulations and compliance with all city ordinances.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh, second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded by Councilor Ray. And with that, I'll open the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none to the public. Back to the council. And is this the first time the farmers market has had entertainment, or is this pretty standard?
This is pretty standard. They like to provide it as a source of sort of entertainment for the customers as well as the vendors who were there for several hours.
All right. Just quickly to make sure, any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 5, please.
Item number 5, public hearing for approval of live music at Dufresne Plaza and Kennedy Park in conjunction with the Bates Dance Festival. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on an application from the Bates Dance Festival for live performances to be held at Dufresne Plaza and Kennedy Park on July 16th through 18th, and to authorize a permit for an outdoor entertainment event as required by the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-3, to the event organizers for the outdoor event, contingent upon positive recommendations from the police department, fire department, code land use officer, and code health officer regarding compliance with all regulations and compliance with all city ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Jelinas. Any questions or comments from the council? Okay, seeing none to the public. Back to the council. Councilor Ray.
I just want to say how excited I am that there's so many events coming back to the city and life is happening again. I'm just jazzed about that. So
Yeah, and I took note, there's quite a few permits that were approved, and it's going to be a fun summer. So thanks for noting that. Okay, any other questions or comments from the council? Call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. And I'm really excited about the next one. I'm excited about all of these, but I'm really excited about the next one with LA Arts and the great work they do in our community. With that said, agenda item number 6, please.
Item number 6, public hearing for approval of outdoor concert sponsored by LA Arts at Dufresne Plaza, Kennedy Park, and Samard Payne Memorial Park. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on an application from LA Arts for the evening outdoor concerts to be held at Dufresne Plaza, Kennedy Park, and/or Samard Payne Memorial Park on June 25th, July 30th, August 27th, and September 25th, and to authorize a permit for an outdoor entertainment event as required by the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-3, to LA Arts for the outdoor concerts, contingent upon positive recommendations from the Police Department, Fire Department, Code Land Use Officer, and Code Health Officer regarding compliance with all regulations and compliance with all city ordinances. So moved.
Kate, moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Jensen. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the public, and I see one hand raised. Good evening, Jim.
Hi, Mayor Kerr. Thank you very much. This is Jim Parakilis. I'm a resident of Lewiston, and I'm the chair of the board of directors of LA Arts. And I share your enthusiasm for this project, and I want to express the gratitude of everyone at LA Arts to the City Council, not only for our annual grant from the city, but in particular for the special grant that we've been given to put on this series of outdoor concerts this summer. It is, as you say, as several of you have said, a really important moment for the city to come back out and to come together and to enjoy music and the arts and food and drink and being together. We have scheduled 4 concerts to coincide with our art walk dates, and we thought originally that we were not going to be able to have art walks this summer. But what we're doing is a kind of modified plan for the summer. So we have already wonderful art in the windows of a number of businesses on Lisbon Street. At Rink Advertising, there are stunning stained glass by Jim Nutting. At the public library, there are wonderful bookbinding by Anna Lowe, and at our own gallery, there's an exhibit of really beautiful paintings by Kate Gargile, who's a teacher at Lewiston Middle School. So we're going to move from there on the Art Walk nights, which are the final Fridays of June, July, August, and September. We're going to have more art in the windows so people don't have to go indoors. But we're also going to have artists and artisans selling their wares and creating art in the park. So we have 2 events scheduled for the amphitheater at Samard Payne Park and 2 at Kennedy Park at the bandstand. And in our discussions with Heather Hunter, it was recommended that those 2 places were of particular interest to the council, and those are great sites for concerts. And the concerts that we're planning are events that bring together several bands and some spoken word and showcasing the talents of local musicians, all from Maine and mostly from the Lewiston Auburn area. So that's the plan that we have, and we're very grateful for the funds that make it possible to put on these concerts and to make them free to the public. And we expect to be advertising them widely, and I'm happy to take any questions you have.
All right, thank you very much. And I would encourage you, once you do start advertising, if you could share it with the councilors so that we can all share it through our social media and get as much attention to this as possible.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. And Councilor Jelinas?
A question for Mr. Parakilis. I've noticed that the final date listed on the event overview is a Saturday. Are you doing that just to make it a different day?
No, I'm forgetting which. I think
September
that was
25th. The dates are listed. It says September 20th. maybe it's just the wrong date on the.
I think it's actually Friday, the 24th of September.
Oh, okay, so we'll just.
But we have had complicated negotiations with Janet Labby because two of these dates overlap. One with the Dempsey competition and one with the Bates Dance Festival event. So we're trying to take advantage of the crowds that will be here for those events, but not to conflict with times on particular days. All right.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. All right. Thank you very much, Jim, and we look forward to this summer.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 7, please.
Item number 7, order vacating the unaccepted portion of Holland Street. Requested action to approve the order to vacate the unaccepted portion of Holland Street.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor LaJoy, seconded by Councilor Ray. And with that, I'll turn it over for a brief reminder by Director Hediger. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening. So yeah, as we discussed at last week's workshop, there's a section of Holland Street that extends beyond the intersection of Avon. That's Paper Street. This was brought to our attention when the Saxon development was approved for the multifamily development on the Pineland lumber site. Vacating the street does require an action by the city council. Notices have been sent out of this hearing, so there's a process for anybody in that subdivision that may have an interest in that to file a claim. Actually, it's a legal proceeding at that point. A copy of that notice is included in your packet. Upon the vacating of the street, it would revert to the abutters down the center line. So the Saxon development would get half this lot, and the other abutter on the other side would get half the lot. I guess I'll answer any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Seeing none to the public. Back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Counselor from Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
and Ward 3.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 8, please.
Item number 8, public hearing on a proposed increase in water rates and approval of amendments to policy manual number 69 regarding the water rates and charges. There are 2 items for requested action. The first item is to conduct a public hearing to receive citizen comment and input on the proposed water rate changes. And I believe, Mr. Mayor, this might be where I'm required to read the statement. Heather's confirming that. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So the PUC and the public advocate require that the applicable section of the statutes, of the Maine state statutes, be read for the public prior to conducting the hearing. So if that's okay, Mr. Mayor, and it is a bit lengthy, so I'm just sort of giving everyone the heads up. Maine Revised Statutes Title 35A, Section 6104. Municipal and quasi-municipal water utilities subject to suspension, investigation, hearing, and rate substitution. Section 6104, and there are 11 subsections. Municipal and quasi-municipal water utilities subject to suspension, investigation, hearing, and rate substitution. Number 1, application of this section. Notwithstanding section 310, any consumer-owned water utility that proposes to increase or decrease rates, tolls, or charges may elect to set rates pursuant to this section. Number 2, utilities that elect to set rates under this section. Consumer-owned water utilities that elect to set rates under this section may not increase or decrease any rate, toll, or charge without first holding a public hearing at which the public advocate and any customer may testify and may question the officials present regarding the proposed rate change. Number 3, notice of proposed rate change and hearing. The consumer-owned water utility shall, at least 14 days prior to the hearing, publish a notice of the proposed rate change and the hearing, including the date, time, place, and purpose of the hearing in a newspaper of general circulation in the area encompassed by the consumer-owned water utility, and give 1 notice of the proposed rate change and the date, time, place, and purpose of the hearing to each of its customers. The published and individual notices must include a statement describing the amount of the rate change and the percentage change for each customer class, the customer's right to request information relating to the present and proposed rates, the right to an open and fair hearing, and the right to further hearings before the commission, and the availability of assistance from the public advocate. The published and individual notices must inform customers that they can petition the commission to investigate the proposed rate change, and must include a statement that signatures on petitions filed pursuant to subsection 7 are invalid unless accompanied by the printed names and addresses of the signers. The published and individual notices must also inform customers that the utility will, upon request, provide customers with petition forms that include space for signatures and the printed names and addresses of the signers. Copies of the notice must be sent to the commission and the public advocate at least 14 days prior to the hearings. Number 4, notice that rate change may be investigated by commission. At the commencement of each hearing held pursuant to this section, the consumer-owned water utility shall inform those present that the rate change may be investigated by the commission in accordance with this section, and that petitions filed pursuant to subsection 7 must bear the signatures and the printed names and addresses of the signers. Upon request, the utility shall provide customers with petition forms that include space for signature and the printed names and addresses of the signers. Section 4A, supporting materials. The water utility shall file a copy of all materials supporting the proposed rate change with the commission and the public advocate at least 30 days prior to the hearing. A copy of all materials supporting the proposed rate change shall be made available to customers for examination at the offices of the utility for at least 30 days prior to the hearing. The utility shall promptly provide any readily available relevant additional material or information requested by a customer, the commission, or the public advocate. Number 5, filing changed rates. The water utility shall file its changed rates with the commission within 30 days of the public hearing, but not sooner than 10 days following the public hearing. Number 6, effective date established for rate change. Subject to the notice and waiver requirements of section 307, water utilities electing to set rates under this section may establish an effective rate for a rate change of at least 1 month, but not more than 9 months from the date the rates are filed with the commission. Number 7, authority to investigate rate changes. If within 30 days of the public hearing, 15% of the customers of the consumer-owned water utility or 1,000 customers, whichever is less, file with the treasurer of the utility and with the commission petitions demanding a review of the rate changes by the commission, the rate change may be suspended, investigated, reviewed, and changed in accordance with section 310, except that if a rate increase is more than 50% of the utility's annual operating revenues, The required number of petitions is 15% of the customers of the consumer-owned water utility or 500 customers, whichever is less. No suspension order issued by the commission pursuant to section 310 is effective for a period greater than 9 months from the date the rate changes are filed. Number 8, procedure for suspension of rate change. If the number of signatures on the petitions is 1,000, or if the number of signatures on the petitions equals or exceeds 15% of the customers indicated on the water utility's most recent annual report on file with the commission may suspend the rate change pursuant to section 310. The commission shall notify the water utility of the suspension. Number 9, water utility may challenge petitions. The consumer-owned water utility has 10 days from receipt of notice to notify the commission and the lead petitioner whether it intends to contest any aspect of the validity of the petitions, after which it loses that right. If the utility intends to challenge the validity of individual signatures on the petitions, it must identify in its notice to the commission and the lead petitioner the specific signatures it is challenging and state the grounds for challenging each signature it believes is invalid. When the utility files its notice of intent to challenge the validity of the petitions, the utility must provide the commission and the lead petitioner with a list of its customers. If the water utility notifies the commission in a timely fashion that it wishes to contest the validity of the petitions, the commission shall schedule a hearing. It shall hold the hearing and issue its decision on the validity of the petitions within 30 days of notification by the water utility that it intends to contest the validity of the petitions. If the commission finds the petitions to be invalid, it shall lift its order of suspension. For the purposes of this section, customer means, in the sense of residential accounts, any one adult residing in a household where the utilities service is provided, and in the case of all other accounts where the utilities service is provided, a corporate officer, a partner, or a proprietor. No more than one person may sign on behalf of an account. No person may sign on behalf of more than one account unless the person is a customer at each account. Signatures on petitions filed pursuant to subsection 7 are valid only if accompanied by the printed names and addresses of the signers. If a petition filed pursuant to subsection 7 bears a significant total number of signatures, but an insufficient number of printed names and addresses of the signers, the lead petitioner has 7 days from receipt of notice of the utility's challenge to cure the invalidity. If the utility's only challenge to a petition relates to the absence of printed names or addresses of the signers of the petition, and the lead petitioner cures the invalidity as provided in this subsection, the commission is not required to hold a hearing under this subsection. Number 10, review of rates under section 310. Nothing in this section prohibits the consumer-owned water utility from petitioning the commission for review pursuant to section 310 in the first instance. Subsection 11, correction of errors. Upon review of a rate filing made pursuant to this section, the commission may order the municipal or quasi-municipal water utility to correct mathematical or clerical errors. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, if I could real quick, for the viewing audience, all the packet information related to the rate increase is found on the city's website under this agenda for tonight's meeting. I would also point out that there was a typo in the non-required section of the notice when looking at the quarterly rate increase. The billing amount was used in lieu of the actual increase, so under the industrial category, the actual proposed increase is $293.46 versus the $1,563.86 that was published. So that's the one correction, and all other information is located on the city website as well.
All right, thank you. And could you, on a typical residential home, can you give an example of what 20% looks like for a residential home? Is that possible?
Yes, on a quarterly basis, if they are at the minimum usage, you're talking probably about, what, $44 a year. If they are above usage, it's $18.60 a quarter, so about $74 a year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? Okay, seeing none to the public. Okay, and just a reminder for anyone wishing to make a comment, if you could just state your name and indicate whether you're a Lewiston resident. With that said, we'll bring in Ms. Ward again. Good evening, Ms. Ward.
Good evening.
Thank you very
Crystal
much.
Ward, Montello Street, a Lewiston resident. And I'm speaking in opposition of the 23% rate increase for the water district. I think it's an extremely large increase at very trying times for many of the citizens of Lewiston. And I think it needs to be looked at seriously as to whether we need it at this point. I also need to know from the council if the infrastructure money that is supposed to be coming out from the federal government would cover any of the expenditures that are being asked for in the water district, and if that is possible, because at one time I'd heard that some of the infrastructure money could be for sewer and water districts also. The other thing that I'm unsure of is the chart of rate increases that are shown on the mailing that we had. As a single person, I currently pay the highest for the water of anybody. Because if I use under the minimum amount of water, which I often do, I still have to pay the set rate. So when you increase that set rate and I continually use under the amount of water, I have the most expensive water in the whole damn city. And so does any single person that can't hit the minimum. I'm unclear as to the next number, which was just quoted, which was if a citizen uses 2,400 cubic feet of water, the increase is $18.60 a quarter, but I don't know how many citizens that is. How many of our citizens use more water than that, and how much is their increase going to be? Are we going to have some citizens that are going to be left seeing a $100 or $200 increase because of the amount of residential water they use? I don't know that because I can't figure it out on this. So what I'm concerned about is the chart shows me that if I use under a minimum amount, I'm going to get an increase, which my water is already high. If I only use up to 2,400, I'm going to get a certain amount. But what if I use 3,000? What if I use 4,000? Are there residents that use that? Is there anywhere where it breaks down everybody so we can see how many residents are going to be hit with much bigger numbers than we are seeing on this piece of paper? I don't know any of the answers to those questions. I'm really concerned of the timing of this. Lots of people are having trouble. Nobody's getting great increases. My cost of living is ridiculous. My cost of living goes to pay for my insurance because I'm on a fixed income. And when you guys come along with a 23% increase, which, you know, somebody's saying, well, it's only $10 here or $20 here. Well, it is a minimum for me of $45.60. Yeah, that's $45.60 that I could use for something else. I think you need to really look at this carefully, but I would like you to make sure that you look into the federal money that may be coming for infrastructure to see if there's anything that we can use there. I don't know the answers to any of these questions. And I did not see the agenda item. I just got the letter from the water district so that I can look up the information. I'm hoping all the answers will be found there. Thank you.
Thank you. And you did ask a few questions, and we typically won't answer those during.
I figured.
But I would encourage you to reach out to our finance department. They could answer all your questions, and I imagine you'd probably be put, either straight to our director or the deputy director. So it is important, if you would like more clarification, that you reach out to them if you don't mind. All right, thank you. And are there any other members of the public that would like to comment? Okay, seeing none, back to the council. Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Ms. Ward speaking up in the comments she made, because I think a lot of people in the community are kind of feeling that way. So, I mean, yeah, looking at the situation, it's unfortunate that it looks like we do have to raise it. You know, ideally, we could have the funds and the property taxes that we could use to kind of alleviate some of that burden there. You know, but given the, you know, all the things that we have to spend money on and going through the budget process and very shortage of funds, you know, it's just unfortunate that we can't do that. But it doesn't feel like there's a lot we can do. I certainly agree with looking into any potential to use infrastructure funding coming from the federal government for this, for anything that we could do. So I just want to take the moment to appreciate the comments from Ms. Ward. You know, even if there's not much that we can necessarily do about it, they are appreciated, and it's good to at least, you know, validate the frustration that a lot of our community members do have.
All right, thank you. And Director Hunter, I would assume we've looked at kind of the funds that are coming in. Do you have any response to that, to Councilor Jensen's thoughts?
We are considering that. I know the city administrator and I discussed it today. We are hoping at the June 15th meeting, we could put together, outline some options for projects that council can review. Our greatest target at this rate, if we do use it for infrastructure, would be foregoing the second water main from the lake, which is a very costly project. And it has some significant interest because of the length the bond would be outstanding for. That's one thing that we would be looking for. We have some other options that the Public Works Director, we're hoping to vet those with all the other ideas that the department heads had submitted to make sure the council gets the full list and decides how they wish to allocate that money.
Okay, and if we did do something with the main, that would not reduce the rates at the time, but it would help us stabilize rates for the future. Is that correct? Or
Most definitely, and that would be the goal.
Thank you. Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too wanted to, you know, let Ms. Ward know that we hear her concerns, and I'm appreciative that she came to speak tonight. I think, you know, it's hard to swallow because it's been, I think, 8 years I was reading since we've had a rate increase. At that point, it was 20%, pretty high as well. And, you know, from what I remember reading, it was really about a lot of projects that had been done, some capital investments, whatever. And these are tough numbers that we're dealing with, tough decisions that we have to make, because as I was looking through all of this, even despite this, we're not really able to cover some of the deficits that surface as a result of, you know, this division. And you know, I wish the news was better, but they're just difficult decisions to make. And I think it's important for the public to remember that we haven't raised the water rates for, I think, 8 years. Even this isn't covering every single thing. I mean, I know there's projects being considered, as you were just discussing, but it's a lot to consider.
All right, thank you. Councilor Jensen, is this, do you have your hand raised? Is that for a follow-up in reference to your initial comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, if I'm referenced again in a follow-up, I would just ask that I be given a chance to respond. I didn't want to imply that city staff hasn't gotten to work on looking into what we could do for any kind of funding from the federal government. I know it's at the very, very early stages, so I wouldn't imagine we even have the guidance that we need. So I definitely didn't want to imply that work could have been done and hasn't. Very early stages and just kind of an idea at this point. So I'm very happy to hear that work is even already being done on that. So I just want to make sure that that was absolutely clear.
I took it that way, and your point is taken. So thank you. Councilor Ray.
Thank you. I have to wonder if we haven't done a rate increase for 8 years to spare Kathy that lengthy reading again, but she did it wonderfully. Can you just remind us, Director Hunter, are water rates paid by organizations who are tax exempt?
Yes, they are. And they're paid by all users of water.
including
Yeah.
us, right?
Exactly. We pay.
Okay, yeah, so
everybody
this is
pays.
as
Hospitals
diffuse.
pay, the nonprofits pay, residential pay.
Okay.
It's shared amongst all users.
Okay, so this is as diffuse as it possibly could be. I hear the point that Ms. Ward makes about folks who live alone, like myself, and how I'm always paying the minimum, but I think if this helps future-proof us in some ways, and then I think it's great that we're looking at ARP project funding to keep that debt service down going forward. I think it's really critical that we are looking into that second line. Based on my experience with it, I think that's a smart idea because we would be really up the creek otherwise if things fail. So it is a tough pill to swallow this time around, but I think I feel comforted by understanding how this will help us in the future as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, so we only have one, we have two actions, but we've already dealt with one, correct?
Yes, that's correct, right.
So call the roll, please.
Sure, and actually, so the first item was just to open the public hearing, and it doesn't need a vote. So then the next item would be the motion that I'm happy to read at this time, if you'd like.
Please.
Sure, to approve the proposed amendments to policy manual number 69, water rates, as outlined in the attached vote sheet, as recommended by the Public Works Director, Finance Director, and the City Administrator.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll entertain a second. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Jelinas, and call the roll, please.
Councilor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
And Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 9.
Item number 9, resolve approving final utility fund adjustments to the fiscal year 2022 municipal budget. Requested action to approve the resolve approving the final utility fund adjustments to the fiscal year 2022 municipal budget.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor LaJoy, seconded by Councilor Ray. Heather, anything you need to add in reference to this agenda item and the next one?
No, at this point, these were adjustments presented before council during a workshop setting. So it's just formalizing that action.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? For the public? Back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Council from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
And Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by vote of 7-0.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10, please.
Item number 10, resolve making an appropriation for utility funds for municipal budget year 2022. Requested action to approve the resolve making an appropriation for utility funds for municipal budget year 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded by Councilor Clement. Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none to the public. Back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Council from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
And Ward 3?
Yes.
Motion passed by vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 11.
Item 11, reports and updates.
Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the school committee met last night. One thing that the superintendent informed us of is he has gathered with Western Maine Superintendents Association to request information from the Department of Education earlier in the summer about return to school in the fall. You might remember last year, they waited until July 31st to release what the requirements were going to be for in-person hybrid, green, yellow, red, whatever. And so we're really hoping that the Department of Education can advise us sooner in the summer so that we can begin planning with our teachers. Also during our meeting last night, we approved some LCIP adjustments from past years where funds were unexpended because bids came in at different levels or the project didn't go through. And those will be reallocated to help repair the Dingley building roof. There's been some conversation about the use of that building going forward, how disrepaired it is, if it's worth continuing to put money into essentially. And so that might come up in future conversations as well. We also approved a first draft of the personnel policies, but we'll look at wages for those groups at a future meeting. And finally, we looked at some professional development days. I know that's been an interest of folks here on the council, but also on the school committee to make sure that teachers are getting PD, but also how to honor the collective bargaining agreements and the 175 days of instruction. So the assistant superintendent got a little creative. And so schools will do those in cycles. So 2 schools will take a Wednesday morning off and do their PD while the other schools remain in session. So it will still meet the 175 days of instruction rule from the DOE. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question in reference to clarification. So recently it was announced in the governor's supplemental budget that they're going to meet or attempt to meet, if approved, the 55% funding level, but that will have no direct impact on Lewiston, will it? Because we already exceed that 55% due to our demographics. Is that correct, or am I mistaken with that?
I do not have the knowledge to answer that question, but I could check into it with school staff or and let you all know. I think that's a great question that I had not thought of before, so I'll do that for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think we already receive over 55%. Heather, you don't know that by chance, do you? Okay. Yeah, if you could, Alicia, that would be great. Maybe send an email or report out at our next meeting. Any other reports or updates? And Councilor Jensen, you don't know off the top of your head, do you, by chance?
I'm nearly certain that we do receive over 55%. I think it's just some of the wealthier communities like down in Portland area that don't receive it. So if they're getting 55, I would hope that we're getting a little bit more ourselves, but I'm not sure if that's the case.
All right, thank you. Okay, seeing no other reports or updates, agenda item number 12.
Item number 12, any other business counselors or others may have relating to Lewiston City Government.
Councilor Ray.
Thank you. Just so the council knows, I re-forwarded an email from someone earlier today and wanted to just ask, I spoke with him on the phone. They are looking to talk to us about the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is a federal piece of legislation to use a carbon fee and dividend model to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. I'm obviously reading from a page here because I am not the expert on this, but the person who I spoke to was interested in coming before us in a workshop session, which I was not sure if other counselors wanted to happen. So I figured I'd bring it up here, see if there was any interest before asking staff to coordinate that.
Okay, so I would encourage counselors to give it some thought and just maybe respond to Councilor Ray and the city administrator if you are interested, if that works. And then either way, maybe we could, you know, if there is an interest to actually have a workshop on it, maybe there's interest to receive information from this group so that we could share it with the council, more in-depth information. Okay, does that work, Councilor Ray? Okay. Any other city business that councilors wish to speak about? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded, I believe, by Councilor LaJoy. Call the roll, please.
Council from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Sorry. Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
and Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, good meeting, everybody. Thank you very much.
See you next week.